Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm live a different time and a different day. So here is what happened. When I was making this quilt behind me, I mathed wrong and cut extra fabric just for the flying geese portions, like the main portion. So all the greens and everything, I cut double the fabric. So I don't normally make the same pattern twice because there are so many amazing patterns out there. So I decided I would make the quilt again, but with a different background since I didn't cut extra background. Uh, so I decided I'd make the quilt again, but using a different background, and I wanted to go lighter. I feel like even though this is kind of pastel colors, it still really pops because of the dark background. So I decided to do a light background. Not sure if I chose the right background color yet. This is a pale gold. It's American brand Fabric Solid. I love their solid fabric. Their solid fabric line is made in the US. So whenever they have a color that I really feel like I need, I try to grab it because I try to buy localish as much as I can. But it's there's not much contrast between the two. I'm hoping with some of my darker colors, the pattern will still work. So I have that here. That'll definitely pop, but this does show up a little better in person, but definitely here, there's not a lot of contrast. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I probably should have gone with white. I wanted to stay away from white and use a different color. I love this pale gold, but these two really blend together. I don't know. We'll see how it works. I'm going to keep going forward because I have the fabric cut. So I feel like I need to go forward with it. But thank you all for joining me at a different time. I see some of you in the chat. Hi, Michelle's Crafted More. Hi, Linda. Hi, Mona. I think I saw Mike. Everything's going by. Hi to all of you. Thanks so much for being here. Let me know if you saw the tutorial for this pattern behind me on my channel. This will probably be a lot longer. I'm probably not going to get much done because I'll be chatting and everything too. But I do want to show you the main steps. It's really a fun pattern. I love the flow of it and everything. I mean, I kind of feel like I'm tooting my own horn with it being my own pattern, which feels awkward for me, but I really am happy with how this one turned out with the colors, with everything. So yeah. All right, so here's the block I'm going to be working on. I might switch up the colors a little bit. I was starting with the one on top, but you really can't see the design so much, especially on camera. So I might flip these around and maybe I'll just do the darker pink on camera because I think you'll be able to see it a little better. So another reason I thought, okay, I'll go live today is because my daughter and husband are off on a college like adventure. You all know we've talked about before that my daughter plays soccer and she's going to an event there where she can play in front of a college coach. Not just her, there's a bunch of other kids there. So they are doing that. It's only a day thing. They'll be back later tonight. So I thought I would do this in the morning and then I'm going to hang out with my son. I'm going to take him to lunch and then we are going to watch a movie. So that'll be a lot of fun. She'll have some time with dad and then my son will have some time with me. So a lot of flying geese here. So we get started on the largest one. I'm just going to sew one of my background triangles to the side here. And I know there are tons of different ways to do flying geese. I like to do them this way where I cut the center of the flying geese, where I cut that from a square and cut it on the diagonal twice, because then that bias edge is sewn here and the background, I just cut a square and cut it and on the diagonal once, then that bias is along here. So when I trim the block down, none of those biases are along the outside of the block. It makes it much easier for sewing everything together and not having to worry about stretching as much again and again and again. Thank you, Pat. I appreciate it. This pattern was so fun. What I'm trying to figure out now is how to quilt it, because I do think I want to enter this one in a show. I'm very nervous about doing that. I don't know why I am. Well, I know why I am. I have so much fun quilting. It is a joy for me to make quilts, to design quilts. I have so much fun. And I feel like if I enter something and I get a lot of negative feedback, I'm worried that it won't be as fun for me after that. So I know that's kind of why, but I do know I need to get past that because I think it would also be fun. So what I do is I sew, there's 4 flying geese in different sizes on the block. And when I'm sewing this, I sew each side and just each size and just chain piece them. But I do need to figure out an idea for quilting this. I think also having this version of it will be fun to kind of do a practice quilting run on it and see what I like. I've been on Pinterest looking for ideas, and then you just go down this spiral on Pinterest where you spend half your day on there. Hi, Amy. Hi, Vicki. I think I see a New York beauty, which is Mike as well. So hi, all of you. And if I'm missing names, I apologize. I wish I had my husband here to help with chat, because when it goes by on the screen, I feel bad, and I won't see it. So you'll be able to see this a lot better. I'm worried about the other one though. And where am I at? So I need the small one. So I made a big goof this week. My son, so he's younger, by just a year, and he gets to get his learner's permit this year. And he finished his online course. I'm sure you probably have to do that in most states. Here you do a course where you learn about not drinking and driving, learning about all the street signs and all that kind of stuff, kind of the rules of the road. So he passed that, got his certificate, and I scheduled an appointment at the DMV so he could go actually get his learner's permit. We gathered all his documents. I had everything ready. And online, it asks kind of like which DMV you want to go to. I chose the one that is kind of closest for us. It's still 40 minutes away. The DMV is just a whole adventure in general anyway. Then it asked like what day of the week we would like to go. I picked Thursday. And me being me, when I picked that day, I thought that the Thursday I picked was the Thursday for this week, the earliest Thursday when I was scheduling it. So I gather him up on Thursday and gather all our paperwork and drive down there. And I'm scanning the form that I got for our appointment. And it's like, you can't check in more than 30 minutes early. And I'm like, what? We're only like 15 minutes early. I keep scanning it. The guy that's over there comes over and he's like, is your paper not scanning? I'm no. So I put in our phone number and information said, it still says the same thing. And he's like, he looks at my form and looks at me like I'm from another planet. And he's like, here's your problem, pointing at the form. And I'm looking at him like, what? It's Thursday, isn't it? He's like, you're Thursday next week. I felt so bad for my son. I mean, I was embarrassed, but I felt so bad for my son. He was like, get excited to be able to, start practicing driving and everything. And he has to wait till next week now. I was so embarrassed. I was like, I could not believe I did that. So I finger pressed these over just to try to help reduce any stretching there. I'm going to trim these down anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. And then I'm just pressing the seam. But I could not believe I did that. I can believe I did that. And the sad thing is however I signed up, I don't know how stuff sometimes just ends up in your calendar on your phone either way. It's one of those creepy things with technology. But I scrolled to the next week because I was like, okay, I need to put this appointment in so I get it right. And it was already entered in there. So if I had just looked through my calendar, I would have showed up on the right day anyway. But oh goodness. So now I'm just going to sew on the other side of this one. So what do you all think of this pale gold background? I really do think this is a pretty color, but I think that one's going to be better. I think it's really going to pop more. But this one might be fun for a more like subtle quilt. I know, Mike. I know how to drive, and I know, but some of the signs that I was trying to think back when I took the test, which was a long time ago, but some of the signs, I swear I've never actually seen the signs that were on the test. They have some off the wall signs that you just really don't really see that often. And I know when my daughter took hers, when she was doing her course, she was asking me some questions on some of the stuff on there. I'm like, I do not know. We had to look them up a lot. Like, I do not know what that is. It's kind of funny too that they let you do this stuff at home for the driving test because you really can just look everything up. So I don't know how much you're really learning. I know when I had to take that type of test, I had to go into this classroom and you had to pretty much sit there all day and they went through all the stuff and then you had to take the test there. So you didn't have the option to look everything up, but you had like a booklet beforehand that you were supposed to study and all this stuff. Now I feel like it's just not taken as serious anymore, which is kind of scary because it shows on the road sometimes. And like sometimes I wonder how some of the people out there on the road got their license. Thank you, Mona. I'm hoping when I get the other colors all together, you'll really be able to see the design better with this lighter background. So I think there are a few other people live right now. So if you pop in and out, no worries. Go check out everyone else. You can catch mine on the replay if you need to. I think it was Tammy the Siberian Wind is on, and then Russ. What is his channel? I think it's Quilt Meets World. So they're always fun to watch as well. So do not feel bad if you need to hop in and out, or if you want to stay with one and watch the replay, it is no worries. This was just the time that worked for me today, so I could make sure I work on this quilt. I know I would put this off and put it to the side if I don't do something like this, because I've made this pattern and I don't know, tell me if you're like me, where if you make a pattern, there are just so many good patterns out there and you kind of feel like you need to work on something else that's caught your eye. But with this being a different background, I am kind of excited about it, but it still is the same main colors. So I don't know. So I'm going to trim down these flying geese. So the largest size is, I don't have the size on this one because when we were making these templates, we didn't have the size at first. And then we got so many, we're like, we really need to start adding the sizes. So 3.5 by 6.5 is the first flying geese size. And I do have a tutorial on this quilt that has the sizes, and in the description of this video and the other video is all the cutting instructions as well. And it's all free. And so the next size is a 5.5 inch by 3 inch. Just lining up the lines. I should have got my glasses. So for these flying geese trimmers, I just line up, if you can see on here, the etched lines going along the diagonal. Then there's the 1/4 inch there to make sure you still get that point. I just line up those etched lines with the seams here, and it makes it really easy for trimming. Let me see what this one is. So 2.5 by 4.5 is the next one. I really should just swap mine out that don't have sizes for ones that have sizes. It'll make it easier for me to know what they are. I know what they are because I keep them lined up on the side over here in the order that I'm using them, but I think only 2 of them have the size on them. So the smallest one is 3.5 inch by 2 inch. So after getting all of these trimmed, what I did was since they're all not the same width, I just cut little pieces of the background to put along each side to get them all to the 6.5 inches. So my brain works that way. In the comments on the tutorial, there was a great suggestion on cutting the background more to like a rectangle and trimming the side so that you didn't have to add on the small pieces on the side. If I could have figured out the math for that, because I did think about it, I would do it that way, but this was much easier for me to figure out. So if anybody figures it out and wants to share the measurements one day, that would be awesome, but I could not figure it out. Cindy, is the block that you don't like to sew, is that the Flying Geese block? It's kind of one that has so many bias that it can get all stretchy, but that's why I always sew them larger and just trim them down. Then I don't have to worry about that. But you know, you gotta, if you want quilting to be fun, you have to stick with what is fun for you and what you find joy in. And if you don't find joy in making flying geese or half square triangles or whatever block it is, doing curves, just don't do it. I've had a template for a drunkard's path with that curve on it for so long that I just haven't done. I did the the double wedding ring quilt a while ago, and it just did not turn out great. It's a beautiful quilt, but those curves are not easy to do at all. Oh, Katie, thank you. Yeah, my mom sent me this shirt. I think it was last year around Christmas, I believe, and I love it. So I'm just sewing these little pieces onto the side of each one. And I think this block comes together super fast. I guess especially if you're comfortable with flying geese. Yes, Cindy. The thing with trimming them down is I know a lot of people don't like to have a lot of waste with their fabric, which I completely understand. But for me, it's just worth it to not have to worry about them being off. Because anytime I do a pattern where the half square triangle is supposed to be made to the size you need, or a flying geese that's supposed to be made to the size you need, it's never the size I need after I finish sewing it. Never, ever, ever. It's always super wonky, and it's really frustrating for me. And sometimes I'll just use it, try to wing it and just get it to fit in place the best I can. But the whole quilt never turns out great. So I always, even if it's a pattern, if I read through it well and I know that it's supposed to be the flying geese, however method they're using it, or the half square triangle, however method they're sewing it, If it's to size, I will try to size it up and trim it down. It's a lot of extra work because it's a lot of trimming, definitely depending on how many are in the pattern. But for me, it's worth it to get it right, or at least right-ish, because sometimes even if I trim them and are adding it to other things, my sewing 1/4 inch seams are apparently not spot on. So all right, so then I'm just going to sew them in order of size. Hi, guess who, Nancy? Hi, Cindy. Cross. We have 2 Cindy's in here that I see. Oh my goodness. It's a popular name today. Oh, normally I like to sew with the point up, and I wasn't paying attention so I can see where it falls to make sure my needle goes just inside of it on the seam so that I have a nice point there, and I wasn't paying attention. So I'm going to kind of put my finger where it is to see if I could snag it in there. I honestly won't fix it if it's a little off anyway, but I like to try to see that it is. I'm not sure why you don't have sound, Nancy. I think you should on my end. Hopefully you do. Everyone does, or I've been talking a long time without any sound. All right, so I'm pressing that seam that I had there. And I always press the seam away from the point. I feel like I can see the point a little better doing it that way. Oh, thank you for letting me know, Dragonfly Sonata, because I was kind of wondering if all of y'all were just being nice, not telling me I didn't set this up right, and that I had no sound. All right. So one more on, and then we'll have this block finished, and it'll be fun. We can kind of put them next to each other and see how it will look with this background. Pat, I agree with you. I actually don't mind trimming down blocks. It's kind of relaxing to me because especially if you have a bunch that just trim down to the same size, you just kind of sit there and cut and cut, and I quite enjoy it too. I never thought I would enjoy hand binding. I mean, I machine sew the binding to the front and then flip it to the back. Every time people talked about it, I was like, nah, that's not for me. And then I finally decided to give it a try, and I actually quite enjoy that too. Night Owl, hopefully somebody in the chat may be able to help you with the top stitch needle. I pretty much only use a like universal needle, and I can't remember the size. That's what it just says on Schmidt's, and that's what I normally buy, or I use a quilting needle. A lot of them will tell you, there's a lot of sites that will kind of tell you what size that needle is if you can't find it on the packaging, because it'll often say like top stitch needle or jean needle, things like that. But you'll often be able to do a little search, and it'll tell you what numbers those are equated for. Oh, thank you, Pat. All right, so I think, let me see. So the light is going to start that way. So I'm sewing them together like this, and then the next time the light comes on, the wider end will be here is kind of how I have the pattern going. Let me make sure. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter to start with. I could sew it either way because I had dark pointing that way there and then light pointing the other way. So right now it doesn't so much matter until I get the whole row going. But sewing this on the wider end will be a little easier. One thing I have found too is like a starch pin and just hitting some starch at these bulky areas and getting it very precise to where you want the starch really is nice on patterns like this with a lot of half square triangles or a lot of flying geese where you get a lot of seams meeting in one spot. It really helps them get nice and flat. Mike, you had to raid our store. So here I have been pressing the seams open. You don't have to. I just found the block comes together really nicely that way. One thing that is nice, since these rows kind of alternate, because the next row, if you can see on there, the flying geese will be going in the other direction under it. So none of these seams have to meet. It'll just be the main seams between each block, which made it a lot easier for each row to come together. Hopefully that made sense. It made sense when I was saying it, but sometimes it comes out as just babbling. So let me see. So the light pink, it's still really, really faded, but maybe when we get more rows together, you'll be able to see it a little more. You really can see it better in person than the way it looks on camera. But we'll see. We're going to keep going. Do you want me to keep doing the pink or do you want me to move and do the green so we can see those colors in the pattern, green or blue? I'll wait a few and see which you all think, if I should do some of the other colors or just keep doing pink. Hi, Terry. Hi, Mama J Enterprises. You're never late. Never late. I'll be on for a little bit. Maybe around 11, 11:30. I'll stay on till sewing these blocks. But then I'm going to take my son to lunch. So I don't know if they've popped up all over, but around here we've got a whole bunch of these different hot chicken type places that are popping up to eat. My kids absolutely love it. It's not bad. But there was a new one that opened up that my son and daughter went to, and they both raved about it. So he wanted to go back, and that's where he chose to go. So this pattern is actually free. It's the pattern behind me. I'm just doing it in a lighter background color. I have all the cutting information in the description of this video. And then I have a tutorial for it that is a lot more condensed and shorter up on my YouTube channel that has all the steps. And in the video, I also go over where to sew all the little pieces together. So all of it is completely free. And I also have a blog post that shares all of the cutting instructions so that if you want to print it out and it's easier for you to print it out, it's easier to print out on the blog post. So, yes, Mama J, all the flying geese templates, we have each size of them, and there's actually a bundle of them on our site as well. So you can get all four, and it's all four that I use in this pattern. Thank you, Bonnie. So green. So I will do that. I'm curious to see how the green looks with the pale gold too. So we'll switch these around to green. Oop. I needed a little bit of a larger design board for these. So let's switch around to the green. I'm going to start with the darker green and then I'll do a light green to put them together too. I had a lot of fun with this pattern. I have the program for EQ8 where you can design patterns in there. So I came up with this design. It was just floating around in my head for a while, and it actually started out as a kind of like tree design, like a Christmas tree or something like that. And I was like, well, what if I turned it to the side and had them going together, like larger to smaller, and then do larger to smaller again? But then when I was playing around, because I'll start by sketching it out on graph paper, and I was like, but I think it would look really neat if I turned them and had it go large to small and then back from small up to large. And I started putting it in the EQ8 and turning them around a lot, and I really loved it. But getting the colors in a way that it really highlighted the pattern was a trick too. I had to mess around with that a lot as well. And once I got it finalized and went to the quilt shop, the colors that I started out with, they didn't have anything similar in it. There was some purples in mine and some yellows. And so I had to switch around that on the fly because I really wanted to get started on it. So I think these colors worked really well too. Cindy, I still haven't finalized the name. On my blog post, I did call it Good Vibrations because that was what was stuck in my head on our last live. A lot of people gave some really good suggestions. I need to go back. I'm not sure. My husband does usually take some notes on some things during the live, but I don't know if he wrote down some of them, but I may have to go back and look at the chat and see because there were so many good name ideas for it. Thank you, So Blessed by Jess. I appreciate it. I mean, I feel bad like over and over saying how much I like my own pattern that I designed, but I really do. It's one of my favorites that I've come up with. All right, so I'm going to finger press the background over. Try not to stretch out that seam too much. Make sure my iron hasn't turned off on its own yet. I love this cordless iron, but one thing for sure is that it just will shut off on its own, which is a good thing because if I forget to shut it off, it turns off. But also if I'm sewing really slow, it's kind of annoying to have to wait for it to heat back up again. Oh, thank you, Cindy. I might just go with it, but I don't know. I'm terrible with naming patterns. I come up with so many patterns. I have sketches of so many different ideas, and naming them is like really hard for me. I just get really stumped on it. So Blessed by Jess, I will say EQ8 is a really fun option to play around in and design stuff, but I feel like it's not very intuitive to learn. If you do get it, definitely get there. They have a book that kind of step by steps walks you through how to do different things in it, which was very, very helpful because I'm the type of person when I get something, I like to kind of jump in and figure it out on my own, work through different things and just try and figure it out. And that helps me remember how to do it if I learn it that way. If I just read something in a book, it's really hard for me to remember how to do it. I'll do it once and then I can't remember how to do it again. And that's one of the problems for me with EQ8 is it's not very intuitive. So they don't have a lot of fabric options. So if there's a particular line of fabric you want to use, you can load pictures of it into EQ8 and use it, but I never remember how to do that. I always have to get the book out and read through it to remember how to do it again. So definitely unless you've used it like someone else who has it or something like that and feel comfortable with it, then maybe you won't need the book. But I highly recommend getting their manual that has all the lessons for everything you'd want to know how to do in there. It's been a lifesaver for me for sure. Yeah, so blessed by Jess. You're welcome for the tip. I don't know. I don't remember who told me when I was talking about getting it for helping me with design patterns, because it'll show you in there rotary cutting instructions and all that, which is really helpful. I usually have to change the sizes a little bit because if you're doing like a half square triangle or a flying geese, it'll give you instructions for cutting it perfect to size, and I like to trim them down. So there's a few things I adjust, but that has been so helpful. Oh, I didn't know, Andrea. So you changed. Oh, you know what? I think when I was in Donnell's chat in her live just a little bit ago, I think she did mention that you changed your name, but it did not click in here yet. Because when she said it, I just heard it and I have to see it too. But she said you changed your name for business purposes because that's what you're using for your patterns, if I remember correctly. So, Andrea, have you put your Daystar pattern up yet? I know that Donnell tested it, and so did who else tested it? I know it's Quilt in fact, but I'm trying to think of her name, and I feel so bad because I talk about her all the time and I cannot think of her name, and one of you are gonna put it in the chat and I'm gonna be like, oh goodness. But I know they both tested it. So do you have it up for sale yet? Hi, I'm guessing it's probably Lauren Lynn, but hi, Mom and Pop Quilt Shop. Appreciate you hopping in. I know you will have a live later, and Mom and Pop Quilt Shop, is your live at 1 Central? I think that's when it is. I try to hop on. Debbie, thank you, Teresa. I knew it, and it was right there at the ends of my brain. Oh my goodness, I feel so bad. And she was just in the chat, I think in Sean's live this morning and in Donnell, and I don't know why, but it just didn't want to creep out. Thank you, husband. So I saw you guys got to where you're going, but I was in the live, so I didn't respond to your text, but thank you for letting me know. I'm gonna put my clapper on this for a minute. Thank you, Mama J. I just saw your other comment, husband. Yeah, I like the name of that quilt because you helped design it, right? When I was agonizing over everything, you were helping me come up with color ideas and went to the quilt shop with me to pick out colors and everything. He held all my stacks and stacks of bolts too. All right, I'm going to trim all of these down again. Have they started practicing yet? Or are you just waiting for things to get started there? Did you get there early? I don't remember when the camp's starting. If you're still on, you may not have great signal there because in Texas, it seems like we don't have great signal in most places. All right. You get all these trimmed to size. I think this darker green looks really good with this pale gold background as well. I am thinking though that the lighter one is going to stand out better than the pink, the light pink did, but and I think the light blue will. So I might have the light pink as the only one that doesn't really show up really well, which is good. Well, then hopefully the coach remembers y'all because of that. Sarah, I agree. I think the green looks great. I can't wait to see how the lighter green looks with it. But just if you popped in and husband, the light pink doesn't pop a whole lot. So the pattern's all yours. You always give me ideas for patterns, though. That is true. This one was not one of your ideas, though. But you did help me with colors and layout ideas. That one I don't need to put a side one on. Oh, okay, Dragonflies for Donna. Thank you for that. Hopefully they're still in here who was asking about the top stitch. I have never used one. So, but that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. So I am just sewing all of these little kind of side squares and rectangles on the side to get them all to 6.5 inches, which is the largest flying geese size, the width of it. Oh, Pat, I'm sorry that you didn't get a notification. I wish I had control over it, but YouTube does not let us control sending out notifications, and they're not always great about it, I've heard. A lot of people have said sometimes they don't get them. I don't know why YouTube does that. I wish I knew. So I'm just pressing over that little side piece of fabric. So Sarah, if you're asking about the flying geese ruler that I'm using, we call them the flying geese trim locks. So I'm using these to trim my flying geese down to size. I prefer sewing my flying geese larger than I need, just a little larger, and then trimming them down so that they're not all wonky. And these work really well for trimming them down. Of course, I am biased because me and my husband make them and we sell them in our online shop. So, but I think they work really great. They're really quick for me. I can trim these down really fast using them. So, Terry, I am not on every Saturday morning. Today, I decided to get on and work on this pattern. So funny story, when I designed this idea, when me and my husband went to get the fabric for the quilt behind me, I wrote up what I thought that I would need for cutting and everything, and I cut double of all of my fabric for the center of the flying geese. And of course, I don't want to throw I don't want to throw all that fabric away, and I didn't immediately have an idea for what to do with it. So I thought, why not make the same pattern again with a lighter background just to see how it looks, to give people different ideas. And that is why I'm doing the same pattern again, but because I don't normally sew the same pattern again, I knew that this would probably get sat on the back burner if I didn't work on it right away. So I decided to get on live, and it would get me motivated to work on it. And plus, my husband is with our daughter right now at a kind of college recruiting event for soccer. So I had a little bit of free time this morning before taking our son to lunch and doing something fun with him. And Sarah, my husband, put the link to our shop in the description, so it is there. It's under our my same YouTube channel name, So Be It Quilts, but since it's through Shopify, they do the like sew dash and all that stuff. myshopify.com. Thank you, Sarah. Oop, pressing it the wrong way. So I typically press the seam away from the point of the flying geese. I feel like it helps the point stand out a little more. So I'm pressing it up to the more flatter side of the flying geese. Sarah, for the flying geese, I know I feel like it makes it so much easier for me to trim them down. If you make flying geese a lot, it'll definitely come in handy. Yeah, Pat, I don't know. There's something about other people who are sewing, who enjoy sewing. It just kind of makes you motivated. Andrea, yeah, so no, we did Shopify. Shopify was much easier for me to set up than when I had PayPal. But I think because we did PayPal first, it may have helped a little bit, or not PayPal, Etsy. I don't know why I said PayPal, but Etsy was a little more difficult for me to set up than Shopify. So Andrea, then Shopify must be what you're going to use for selling your quilt patterns. Yeah, we switched at the last minute. We were going to do everything on Etsy. I'm really glad we ended up switching. It was a little bit stressful, but Etsy takes such a big chunk of everything. And each item you post, they charge you for. And even if you say put in that we have like 100 slide locks or something, every time one is purchased, they charge you a fee because they count it as a new posting, a new listing, even if you have multiples of it. So if you post 100, pretty much they charge you for each one of them. And I get they have to make money, completely get it, but it's kind of hard for, if you're just a small little business, it's kind of hard with everything they charge. I really like the green with this pale gold. Let me know what you think, but this green is really, really pretty with the pale gold. It does look really nice with these as well, but I really like it with the pale gold. Oh, yeah, Andrea, we had somebody who later helped us with some of that with the sizing of all that stuff. We did not know, but all that stuff, if that's not what you like really do as your, your job and stuff, it is not fun trying to set some of that stuff up. If I had to do it myself, I probably would have been lost. I am not good on computers at all. I've had to bring, or any tech stuff. When my son's really good at tech stuff, just like my husband is pretty good at all that. I've had to bring him my computer and my iPad sometimes when my husband's busy, and I'm like, can you help me fix this? Whatever happened to it? I'm not. It's a wonder that I am able to get this live going on my own. Um, but to be fair, my husband did show me how to do everything. Yes, Annette, I think so too. I really like how that green and pale gold looks together. I'm hoping it looks really good with this lighter green as well. Yes, Andrea, I think I'm going to prefer the darker background as well. I was really curious to see how the difference it would look with the lighter background. And I think it'll still be fun, but I think the darker background was definitely the way to go for these particular colors that I got. I'm sure it would be different with different colors, just depending on what the look you're going for. But I am really glad to have this version so I can practice a quilting idea on it. I showed a few to my husband earlier, maybe it was last night, that I found on Pinterest, and I don't have a set idea yet. I think I'm going to print out an outline of this quilt pattern and just draw out some different ideas on it. Yeah, Andrea, I agree. If I do get up enough courage to enter it into a show, that the darker one will definitely be the one I go with. I feel like it's modern-ish, so I'm wondering if I should enter it in under like a modern category. I don't know though. I'll have to see. Amy from the channel Amy Dement, she gave me an idea for the Austin show and sent me some info on it. And then Ian talked about the Dallas show. So I have 2 ideas right now for trying to enter it. Maybe we'll see. I have to get it quilted and bound and not mess up the quilting and binding. Andrea, yeah. I do. I need to just do it. I need to get over my little fear of it. I think quilting, depending on the color I choose, will help that pale pink too. I think it'll help it pop. My husband said that it will get entered. He knows how I am too. Like, I'm terrible with just committing to things anyway. Even like when I want to buy something, I'll put it in the cart and I'm like, maybe I'll do it later. I'll have to think about it. And with even simple stuff. Thank you, Pat. I wasn't sure. To me, it felt more modern, but sometimes I struggle with, like, some quilts you can tell right away, like that's a modern, but some I'm like, I don't know. It could kind of go either way. I think this lighter green is going to look really pretty too. But definitely the darker green looks really good with that pale gold. And again, the pale gold, if you like that background, the background color, I don't have any more in my shop. I'm sorry, I used them all for this, but it is American made brand Solid. I love their Solid fabric. I love that it's made in the US. I think it's really good quality. I don't have much trouble with it fraying along the ends like I do with some. Really, really, really like their fabric. The other fabric that I'm using is Bella Solids. That's what the local quilt shop nearest to me uses. So that's what those are. but I try to keep some stock of the solid fabric. I just, after everything else that we do, we don't have much space, but hopefully when we move and can get some larger space for our business, we can do more fabrics in our shop as well. Yeah, Jackie, I agree with the gray. I don't have, I used up the gray. Can't remember. I had some and I used it up in a pattern recently. I do need to try and place an order for more solids from the American Made brand, but I haven't. I need to though. Space will constantly be an issue though. But I use a lot more solid. I've been using a lot more solids this year. So I definitely do need to get some more, but gray was my first thought too for these. I had this pale gold, I had a cream, and white, I think was all I had in kind of lighter fabrics. The cream I think would have looked good too, but I used that so much recently. I'm like, I need to try something else. Jackie, that's probably honestly how it would get done, is if he went and ordered under the bed. It would get so dusty though. Andrea, I only have an account with Clothworks right now for fabric, and that was mainly because I really like their solid fabric. So their prints and stuff are not made in the USA, only their solid lines. The cream that I usually get, I think it is called light cream, but it's from American Made brand as well. So yeah, they do. That's right. I would love to get a better stock of fabric, and when we get more space, that'll definitely be something I would add to the shop. And I'd honestly still probably start with solids from that company as well. I don't know if I have any of their cream that I typically use in our shop right now. I do need to go in there and look and see what I still have, but I don't think they have like a grunge type fabric. I'll have to look. I haven't gone through and looked to see what they have in a while. Is it, Amy? I need to look into it better, but I think their solid is really, really, really well made. I will say I like their fabric, their prints, but they do vary in quality, in my opinion. Some of them are better than others, and you don't know. I don't know until I order them. I haven't had an issue with any of them, but I do think some of them feel nicer. And once they get washed down, they'd probably all be fine. But their solids are all very consistent in quality, and I think they are great. I'll have to look at that, Amy. I mean, I believe you. I'm not saying I don't believe you, but that is, I haven't heard that, and I think that's really, I knew their cotton was somewhere in the US, but that's kind of cool that it's here in Texas. Definitely supporting local then, huh? That's really neat. Okay, let me sew the little side pieces on these, and then we'll have another color done. And I think I'll probably just move on to the blue so we can see it in each of the different colors. Yeah, I agree, Andrea. I need to get better. We need to get better. And not just me, but me and my husband both need to get better at marketing. That is neither of our forte. We talk about that a lot. I don't know. Whoops. I was thinking and trying to sew, and I'm gonna have to pull that stitch out because I definitely went off course there. We need to try to do a quilt show and stuff. A lot of people have told us that we should, because a lot of the things we sell is a lot better if you see it in person, see it used. So that's helpful with the videos, but still not everybody gets on YouTube too. So it's not something everyone uses. So we do need to do a show at some point, but we also need to get more inventory, which means we'll need more space. Is hops Texas cotton? I did not know. I tried to look, because when I was thinking about selling fabric in our shop, I was like, I wanted to start with anything American made if we could, because that was kind of what we were trying to do with our shop and with what we make and everything. And the first thing I found was the American made, and I made the mistake at first because I thought all of their fabric was, and I was like, whoa, when I got it, they all kind of felt different. I still like their designs on a couple of their lines and things, but then I found out it was just the solids that were American made. And that's fine. I don't think there is honestly a lot of fabric that is made in the US. Andrea, that's a good idea. Let me think. I'm not sure. It's hard to shop online for fabric in general. Uh, Nothing looks like it's supposed to in the photo. Then when you get in the person, the colors can be kind of different. That's why I like to go to the quilt shop when I can, because these fabrics, since I haven't used them before, I definitely wanted to see them in person. I knew if I ordered online, they may not look like I was thinking they did. All right. So these in order. And I think after this one, I'm going to start with the light blue and see how that one looks, and then do the darker blue. Wait, husband. Who is a woman after your own heart? I hope you're talking about me. I'm guessing it's about the taxes. And that it can be hard though, because I know, like the shop that's closest to us, they have a good selection of fabric. They have quite a bit of fabric, but they don't always have like everything. I mean, you can't have everything. There's so much fabric out there. So it's really, really hard to only shop in person sometimes too, unless you have a lot of options, because you may not be able to to find what you're looking for or hoping to use. So I do have to rely on online sometimes, but it's really hard. I got a fabric that I was hoping to use on a back of a quilt. It was a red, and I didn't end up using it for the quilt I intended because the red was just all wrong when I got it in person. I was thankfully able to use it on a different quilt, but it can be really hard if you have a very specific idea and the color isn't right. All right, let me show you this one. So it's the lighter green. And I'll sew these two together really quick. But I think it's only going to be that lighter pink that really blends in with this pale gold. So I guess I should make the idea if I want to try, make the decision if I want to keep going forward with that same pale pink or try to find one just a tad darker before I do the whole quilt. I don't know. I'll probably end up just using it because what will I do with all that pink if that's all I have left? Hopefully after quilting I can highlight it if I keep using that one. I feel like it got hot really fast. There's that one. Here is the pink. Kind of when you're getting them together, because it would be like this. The darker ones in the row is always going to be next to one of the lighter ones. So I can't hold them. Yeah, I think it'll bring out the pink anyway. So we'll see. Okay, so let's move to the blue. I'm going to do the light blue just in case I end up not staying on enough to do two more. I'm going to do the light blue first. Should have put these all on different design boards so I'm not flipping through them. But I really try to keep everything together for a quilt if I can, or it'll get scattered everywhere throughout this room. So here is the light blue, and I think it's gonna be close, but I think it's gonna still pop a little better than the pink, the light pink. All right. Hi, Sally. You're not late. I think there's two other creators that are on live right now. So hopefully you were checking some of what they're doing out. I think Tammy, the Siberian Wind is on, unless I'm not sure how long she was staying on, but and then I think Russ from Quilt Meets World is on typically at this time. I felt bad, but I knew all of you would just head over and check replays, so I just went with it. The weekends used to be open pretty much all day, and then they filled up fast. Have a good weekend, Amy. Thanks for hanging out for a bit. Hopefully you get all of your cutting done. And I hope your hip feels better as well. All right. Press these over. First, get them moving in the right direction, and then I'll add heat. Andrea, I think I'm going to put it on the long arm and try to do something a little fancy if I can. I'm still very new on the long arm, so normally I straight quilt, but I think I'm going to try and do something a little fancy. I'm going to print out an outline of the design and then kind of draw out some ideas, see what I might like. And then on this quilt with the lighter background, I'll do a test run and see how I feel about it and then go from there. If I don't like how it's turning out, I might just straight quilt it. But hopefully I can do something fun. Yeah, Amy, if you're still here, that probably would help. Oh, I almost sewed the wrong fabric on here. I really like the color of this blue. I wish I kept the receipt so I knew the color, all these colors, but I didn't. And I also wish I kept the receipt because I was thinking I may need to bind that with the darker blue. I got some striped fabric last night to see if it'll work for the binding because I love stripes on the binding, but we'll see. What name? Oh, the plan. Oh, the plan. Yeah. I'm really nervous about quilting this one. So having this lighter background one to practice on will be very helpful, I think. All right, so I'm going to cut these apart, press this side, and then trim them to size. Yeah, Andrea, I agree with you. I do need to. I think my husband keeps a better track of that stuff than I do. All right. Let's see how these look with the pale gold with this blue. The nice thing I know is that the quilt shop that I go to, they can look in and see what I bought if I go in there and really want to use that blue. So I'll be able to do that. So there is that lighter blue with the pale gold. So I'm going to trim all these down. The largest one is trimmed to 6.5 by 3.5. So yeah. Normally, so the Flying Geese trim locks have the numbers printed on them now, but when we first started, we didn't put the numbers on because we weren't selling as many different sizes as we do now. So now we put them on because it's a lot more helpful. But some of mine that were some of the first ones we did don't have numbers. I do need to switch them out because they do have numbers on them now. Yeah, that is true. I think we do try to make all our purchases on that one. But so this one is 5.5 inches by 3 inches, which is the next size up. I'm just lining up those etched lines with the seams. So the grips on the bottom just make it really easy to hold the fabric so I can turn and trim these really fast. And this next size is one that, so it's 2.5 by 4.5. I should have all the sizes memorized by now. I really should, because I've done so many of these, trimmed down so many of these. But 2 of them have the numbers on them and 2 of them don't. And then the smallest one is 3.5 by 2 inches. All right, so they are all trimmed. And I don't think I have a clear one over here because I just used those, but I don't know if you can see on camera how the edge kind of really reflects light really well. So for me, I like this one because of that. I can see how it's lined up a lot easier. And then the etched lines do the same. They really attract and reflect the light really well. So I can see it nicely for lining up on the seams. The white is good too if you really want to be able to see through the template to see the fabric and the design on it really well. You might like that one better, but I do think the lines are a little harder to see on lighter fabric if you use a lot of light fabrics. Darker fabrics, I think it would be just fine though. Yeah, we do have it. We have the size printed on everything now. Just when we first started doing them, we didn't put the size because we didn't have a ton of different sizes for the trim locks, for doing half square triangles in hourglass. I think we started with only 3 sizes of them, and it was really obvious what each size was because there was just 3. And then when we started doing these, we didn't put the size on them because I think we just started with 2. And then when people ask for more and more sizes, we're like, we really need to start putting the size on them, because it even got hard for us because we'd have to check them each time before we put them in orders and everything. So we're like, okay, we need to do sizes on them. Hi, Melissa. Yeah, so all of them have the sizes put on them now. Oh my goodness, I did it again. I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. I'm just going to back up and redo that instead of pulling the seam because it was short, not over. But I'm sewing before I'm even paying attention. Hi, Debbie. So Debbie from Quilt Infect, I think she goes live every Tuesday. I can't remember the time, but it's somewhat in the morning. Still driving. Be careful, Debbie, if you were the one driving. Okay. Making sure I'm putting it on the right side. So I know a lot of you don't love doing flying geese, but seeing me do them live here and how long they take, even while I'm sitting here chatting and everything, does it seem as daunting as it did before, or does it seem okay? I think the block actually comes together pretty quickly. But I have sewn a ton of flying geese lately. Ooh, Nancy, I didn't see the email. "55 minutes." I wonder if Mike's still in the chat, because him and Donna were talking about how long they think it'll take to do them, and I think that Mike said he thought maybe 20 minutes, and I was like, I don't know. I think that's what he said. I'm not sure, but um so were you saying you thought it was 20 minutes then, Mike? I think that's what you had said, but so Nancy said it took her 55 minutes. Yeah, I thought it was around there. They really take a while to get all those off of. Oh no, Nancy. I still need to file up my nail because I've been doing a lot of peeling of plastic, and it's, you probably won't be able to see on here, but it's like really crooked from it getting destroyed doing that. It takes a while to do to peel them off. It's not, I wouldn't say it's hard. It's just very monotonous. It's and it, yeah, it destroys your nails. Vicky, I agree. I really like flying geese. I think they're like half square triangles where they're really versatile. You can do so much with a pattern with them. Get so many designs. I love doing them, and I know a lot of people do not like them. When I posted the picture of this quilt on Facebook, Instagram, and when the video went up, when the tutorial went up, a lot of people said they love it, but they will not do that many flying geese. I don't know. I really like them. I like flying geese and half square triangles. I love making them, but I don't mind trimming them down. Husband. Andrea, so Chris from Sew the Distance, she sent me a video of someone getting peeling papers off. I don't remember what it was, but they were using duct tape to peel it off. They would put the duct tape on and then peel it back, and it took the papers off, but it didn't work on these. I was really excited to try it though. So there's the light blue. Yes. Oh, an FPP pattern for the block would be really good for those who don't love doing flying geese. I think Becca has some patterns on Etsy for flying geese for individual for FPP, but not this block in particular. But that's a good idea. I may be able to on EQ8 do that though, to get it to size. I'm not great at FPP though, so I don't know that I'd be able to demo it. I could try though. All right, so here is the darker blue. And I think that'll be really nice. I think the dark green will still be my favorite though, with the pale gold color next to it. Maybe if I have time after the live before I take my son to lunch and we go to see a movie, I'll see if EQ8 lets me turn this block easily into a FPP pattern. That would be really nice if it does, because I already have the block pretty much loaded in there. But I think what would be nice too is doing it that way. I bet we could get rid of these small little end pieces. But I'd have to see if somebody else could help me with showing it, because FPP is not my favorite. I would much rather trim the blocks down. I feel like even with trimming them down the way I do the flying geese, I waste so much more fabric doing foundation paper piecing. For me, I am not great at it. I always size the fabric much larger than I need to for the area, but I know some people love it and they are really, really good at it. Like the legit kits are amazing. It takes me forever to do them. Oh, Nancy's gonna give Mike some insight. I have, Sally, I've tried doing the 4 at a time, flying geese. I have really had trouble understanding it. I feel like there's different ways for everyone where it just clicks for them, and that way did not click for me. I know a lot of people love that 4 at a time method. I'll tell you though, the reason that I really like this way that I show on my video, cutting the fabric and everything, the cutting instructions. So this, the center, these color fabrics for the flying geese, I cut them from a square, and then hopefully you can kind of see it on this on the screen. So they're cut from a square, and I cut along the diagonal twice. The reason I cut it this way is because the bias where it's all stretchy is just along these two sides, and the bottom is a little more stable. So that's the cutting for that piece. And then the sides are cut from a square and then cut along the diagonal once. So that diagonal is where the really stretchy is. So the stretchy gets sewn to the stretchy along here. And the reason that's really nice that way is because once you get your whole flying geese done, it's going to be very stable because the stretchy bias edges are already sewn together, and then you press it and then you trim it. And so the outside of it is all nice and stable and doesn't have any bias ends this way. It's really nice this way because once you put the block together, it won't have any bias ends on the outside. So when you're sewing everything together, you're not going to have all that stretch. So hopefully that makes sense. That's the reason I usually do it this way, but everybody's going to have their favorite method, and that's totally fine. Oh, Donnell, so he is off with our daughter at college. She is doing kind of like a recruiting event there. And so if I understand right, he's probably just in the stands there in the car where it's cooler and joined for the chat. But she's going to be there for quite a few hours, and then they'll be getting home later tonight. That's really smart, Pat. I see. That's why FPP is not my, because I would have never thought to do it that way. That's really smart, though. It's kind of like doing it this method then, but having the papers to keep everything together and making sure you're getting them to the perfect size. Oh, thank you, Dr. Kathy. It took me a while to figure it out because it's honestly Chris from Sew the Distance who taught me a lot from watching her videos about bias and all that. And I never understood why you would do all that cutting in different ways to get the triangles. And then when I really took the time to look at it, I was like, oh, that's why this method really works well for me when I take the time to do it this way, because you kind of lose all those bias seams in the middle and don't have to worry about your block getting all crazy. See, there I was talking and I didn't chain piece all these. I'm like, why aren't the sides on all the rest of my on the rest of all my flying geese? Because you didn't sew them on, Fallon. That's why, because you were talking. Thank you, Sally. I honestly should have explained that in the video when I did the formal tutorial for this quilt. Sometimes I just get lost, and sometimes you don't want to get your video too long, but it honestly is really important, and I should have explained that that's why I cut them this way. All right, so now I will have all of these sewn together. Then I will press them and trim them to size, and then the block will come together really nice and quick here. Usually I have the starch pin here, but it's empty. I need to mix up some more starch, but normally I would put starch along these seams to get them really, really flat. I'll just have to do it later after I mix up some more. But putting them right on the seams is really helpful to get these nice and flat, because really with these, a lot of seams come together. You can get a lot of bulk in some of the areas, but I starched almost all the seams here that were really bulky, and it got it really nice and flat. So it should be easy, pretty easy to quilt over them now that I starched them all down, even though there are a ton of seams that meet together. Jelly roll fuzz. That fuzz from jelly rolls is a problem. It gets everywhere. I think that when I get on Soya's live fabric sales, whenever I've purchased, I don't know if they call them jelly rolls, but I think they cut a lot of them themselves. And I love getting them from them because they don't cut them all pinked. And so it doesn't shred all over you everywhere. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Do any of you like the pinked edges on pre-cuts? I feel like most people say no. And I wonder if we could just revolt and ask them to please stop pinking the edges on pre-cut fabrics. I'd much rather just trim off any loose threads afterward before I sandwich a quilt and quilt it. I'd much rather do that than deal with all that fuzz. Yeah, there you go, Mike. We need to revolt. We really do. There's going to be 2 people that are upset about them not being pinked anymore. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some people do love it. I cannot stand it. It's just fuzz everywhere. Oh, yes. Yes, Pat, that is true. Because if we were doing it all on a solid piece, we would need something else besides a triangle on the ends. I don't know. Maybe I can figure it out because if I printed out a template for it, I should be able to measure it and see. I don't think many people like the pinked edges. I get the idea of them so that the fabric doesn't unravel. I just really don't. I would rather just trim off. If I get a little bit of unraveling, I would just rather trim that off than have that fuzz everywhere. That's, my mind is leaving me. I need more caffeine, I think. Trying to sew things on the wrong way. Mike, if you lead the revolt, we will all follow. We can go to one of the big fabric companies and have some little signs out. Andrea, I tried that and it helps a little, but I feel like it still just keeps coming. It's not as bad, but it still, I don't think it gets it all. It did help though. I don't know why they haven't. I feel like nobody's happy with the pink edges, so I wonder why they still just keep doing it. Maybe that's because how their machines are already cut up to cut them, and like you're not going to replace them. I don't know, but don't love it. Okay, I'm gonna press these seams. Mike. Mike's gonna be out. We're all gonna tell him we're gonna go with him to pick it and revolt, and then he's gonna be the only one there. We're all gonna be back still sewing. And be like, where is everyone? Yes, Pat, they don't do the pinked edges either. That's why I like their pre-cuts when they're hand cut themselves. And then I think So Yeah cuts theirs themselves, and it's so nice. And then yeah, and I think they're also hard to line up with the pinked edges. Like it's hard to keep them consistent that way. Vicky, oh, I think I was about to sew that wrong. No, I'm right. Vicky, it is to help with the fraying. That's why they pink them so that they don't fray as much. And I don't think they do fray at all with the pinked edges, honestly. It's just all the lint, and then I feel like it's hard to line them up and sew a straight seam. it just plays with my mind to line up the pinked edges. Like, where do I sew? I just try to stay consistent. If I decide to sew along the edge of like the peaks of the pinked edge, I try to keep doing that. If I decide to sew along like the valley of it, then I'll try to just consistently stay there. But I feel like it plays with my mind on where to line up every single time. Yeah, I mean, that could be it, husband. And Big Pharma's probably still involved too for our sanity's sake. Hi, Jackie. Donnell, that's true. And you know, they're never uniform. But I try not to get too upset about it because I know when I'm cutting, I'm probably not always perfect either. But I don't know. I feel like if you're paying for it to be cut properly, it'd be nice if it was. I just know whenever I use a pre-cut that is pinked, I feel like I need to dust my entire sewing room and vacuum after. Mary G, the best thing to do to figure out the measurement on where you're supposed to sew is to measure, you know, if it's a jelly roll, to measure where the 2.5-inch falls, if it falls at the peak or if it falls at what I call the valley. And then you would sew to there. But I don't know, it sometimes isn't consistent even in the same jelly roll. So it makes it kind of hard. It'd be nice if they at least marked it on the jelly roll, right? If they were just like, you know, measure to the peak or measure to the valley. So there are those two. I'm going to sew them together. And then I will need to remember today to mix up some more of my starch for my pin because I'm definitely going to need to starch these seams like I did with the other one and press them really nice and flat. Thank you, Donnell. All right, so here are all of the 3 different colors. So pink, green, and blue. So which one is your favorite with the pale gold? I really like this darker green with the pale gold. I think the green's probably my favorite. But it's going to be interesting seeing this all put together in a lighter background next to the darker background. So I'm going to have to keep working on it. I'm going to have to stay motivated to keep working on it. Hopefully it keeps me motivated since I'm going to want to use this one to practice the quilting on it. Oh, I love the orange cinnamon buns. Donnell, you don't like them? Ah, I think they're so good. Andrea, what starch do you like to use? So Donna voted for the blue. Yeah, I really like the green. I think the green and the blue look the best with the pale gold. And this one I think is okay. The lighter pink gets lost in this one. but I think altogether it should end up turning out fine. But definitely, definitely like it with the dark background was the way to go. A lot of people like the pink. Yeah, green then blue, I agree. And then the poor pink. Donnell, I'm with you. I will eat. If you make something, I'm just gonna eat it. But yeah, I don't know. I think I like the orange ones the best, but unless I'm making them myself. If I'm making them myself, I, I'm really good at the baking portion of cooking. My husband is much better at making literally everything else. But baking, like baking bread or anything, I'm pretty good at. Cinnamon rolls, I'm pretty good at. And they are so good homemade. But I do love the the kind that you get in the can and cook. If they're the orange ones, they're my favorite. A lot of people, you all like the green, but husband, you like the blue. Well, you just like blue though. Blue. I don't know. The green I really, really like. I kind of wish I had just went and got some like a really light gray or something because I think it would have gone really nice on here, but oh well, I used what I had. I was trying to be good. I used the pale gold, and then when I was cutting, I realized I'm probably about a half of a yard short on what I needed to cut all of the background. So I went on to Etsy to buy some pale gold, and then ended up buying. I ended up buying some background fabric for this, or not some background, some backing fabric for this quilt for later when I finish it. And then I bought some binding fabric that I'm hoping to use for this one. If I don't, I'll use it for something else because I love striped for binding. But I probably should have just gone to the store to get the gray for the background on this because I ended up buying a bunch more fabric anyway, needing more of this. It's just so, I was like, okay, so I was on a shop on Etsy that sold the pale gold. And then I was like, well, I can't just buy one little piece of fabric from that shop. And so then I found the backing fabric, and it's a wide back. I love being able to find like a really nice wide back fabric so I don't have to piece it together for the backing. And then I saw striped fabric, and my husband's like, "Oh, so we're shopping now, huh?" He was waiting for me to finish so we could start a movie, and I spent more time in that shop than I needed to, but I don't know, it's nice. I like shopping on Etsy for fabric sometimes because it's all smaller shops, and I don't know. I like being able to shop on there because if you've ever purchased anything on Etsy compared to now, I love Missouri Star and I love Fat Quarter Shop. Obviously, I love watching their videos on YouTube too. But I feel like the Etsy shops, they really ship out your fabric really fast. They ship, they fill the order and ship it really fast. So I always get it much, much faster that way. We're always talking about both Mike, food and fabric. Oh, all right. Well, I am going to wrap up on here. I finished each of these colors much faster than I thought I would. I thought it would take me much longer. I do need to make a bunch more blocks, but I am going to go get some cleaning done, get some things ready before I run off to lunch with my son and then watch a movie. And I will be feeling bad for my husband sitting out in the heat there while I'm eating some hot chicken and watching a movie. Oh, great here. Oh, hi, Ian. I just saw you hop on. I'm about to hop off though. A cinnamon bun scented quilt in the fall. I feel like you could probably scent fabric, but it would probably just wash out whenever you wash it. So our son loves to bowl, and they make scented bowling balls too. And he got one that's, I think it was cherry scented, and it actually lasts. It's still scented. I was really surprised. You're fine, Ian. I don't normally go live on Saturday, so I don't think anybody really knew I was going to hop on. I just really wanted to work on this quilt behind me in a lighter background and see how it looked. Yeah, Mike, isn't that? I don't know. I don't know, but I think it was Christmas or one of his birthdays. That's what he had on his list. He has probably 3 or 4 bowling balls because he really likes to bowl. And I never knew this because I never got that into bowling, but apparently, like, you can buy bowling balls that are meant for different things, like some just to go straight, some to curve a certain way. I don't really understand it, but he does because he really is good at bowling. So yeah. All right. Well, I am going to head out. Thank you all so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun. I will keep you all updated on how this is turning out when I get more blocks and more rows done and see how it comes together. Andrea, that's probably right. It probably is to cover up the sweat smell. All right. Well, thank you so much, all. And I will see you all on Wednesday. We'll be here for our regular scheduled live and see you all then. So thank you all for joining me. Bye. Have a good weekend.